Siddharth, to please come here. They say people like him don't need an introduction, but I will continue to do the introduction. As you all know, Siddharth is an actor. Some of you also know he's a producer. He's a screenwriter and a playback singer. He's from my tribe. He's an MBA from the SP Jain Institute of Management. He started his journey in cinema as an associate director in the legendary Maniratnam. He has been a lead actor for over 2 decades and has had industry-defining successes in Tamil, Telugu and Hindi cinema. Chitta 2023, produced on banner, was a box office success and has won many prestigious Best Picture and Best Actor awards. He will be seen in 2 Tamil films in 2025 and is currently filming for a Tamil film and a new Hindi web series for Netflix. Here's to you, Siddharth, a very warm welcome from the Hyderabad Literary Festival.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be sitting next to the lady to my left. All of you know Vidya Rao for her incredible contribution to music and literature and art. I know Vidya Rao because she's my mother-in-law. So it's really an honor that, I even want to say this is down to nepotism. Thank you, Vidya Rao, for letting me on this stage. And I look forward to this session. Over to you.
Right, this is all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amita, all of the people at the Hyderabad Literature Festival. And thank you, Siddharth, for, I saw Chitta and I told Siddharth that I saw Chitta with Siddharth, in fact. He showed it to me and I said, this is a film that not only has to be watched but discussed. Otherwise we watch films, we go home and say, oh, it's a lovely film and that's the end of that. But it's when we discuss it, we take the message home, we take it, we discuss it with other people and we do something about it. That's important. So, Siddharth, congratulations for making a film like this.
Thank you so much.
An extraordinary film, a very brave film. And I think a very sensitively made film, and let me start with that now. I'm just diving right in. This is a film that deals with child rape, the rape of little girls. The number of issues that emerged from this, and for me, if you remember, I couldn't speak to you after that film. I was just sort of, I was in so much emotion. I think the first question I want to ask you is, normally when we think of somebody working, on a film on rape, what we have been used to seeing is men jumping in as the avenging, I won't say angel, because it's a lot of blood and gore, there's a lot of vengeance actually, revenge. And this is a completely different take. So I want to start with that. How did you first, what led you to think about this film? How did you work with this notion? The protagonist, the main character is you. It's a man.
So first things first, I just want to give a little context. The film that Vidyama is referencing is a film called Chitta. We had a screening of it this morning at the Hyderabad Lit Fest. Chitta for me is a film about child safety. It's a film about the relationship between an uncle and his niece. But it is also a film with a male protagonist. These are all truths about this film. Why and how we made this film is very important to chronicle, as Vidyama said, because prior to us, we were very aware that films about this subject matter were not made regularly and definitely not in the mainstream. So when I made this film, it was the 22nd or 23rd year of my career in films. It released in September 2023. We wanted to make a film based on what the research had told us about true incidents that had happened in Tamil Nadu at the time. And we wanted to make a film that was honest to the subject matter that we chose. I'll explain why I say honest. I knew that being the producer of the film, and you must know I self-fund my films, so Chitta was made with my post-tax savings. All of my films are. So when I was choosing a subject to produce next, I'm sure you'll agree with me that there are many more commercially viable films I could have chosen than a film about child safety, which deals with the very triggering social curse of abuse, specifically of children and the most vulnerable in our society. So the first step of making this film was loaded with questions, luckily which I wasn't in a position to be forced to answer, because I was making it with my money, so I didn't have to explain to anybody else how much money this film will make. So that's why it was possible for us to tell this story. And the film ends with hope. I always tell people my film is about a child and it's about hope. It is not about the people who abuse or what should be done with them. And we wanted to make a film that was honest to the subject matter that we chose. I'll explain why I say honest. I knew that being the producer of the film, and you must know I self-fund my films, so Chitta was made with my post-tax savings. All of my films are. So when I was choosing a subject to produce next, I'm sure you'll agree with me that there are many more commercially viable films I could have chosen than a film about child safety, which deals with the very triggering social curse of abuse, specifically of children and the most vulnerable in our society. So the first step of making this film was loaded with questions, luckily which I wasn't in a position to be forced to answer, because I was making it with my money, so I didn't have to explain to anybody else how much money this film will make. So that's why it was possible for us to tell this story. And the film ends with hope. I always tell people my film is about a child and it's about hope. It is not about the people who abuse or what should be done with them or crime and punishment. It is about children, the most vulnerable members of our society, women, and hope. I made Chitta for my mother, I made it for my sister, I made it for my wife, I made it for my mother-in-law, because all of their stories don't find their way to the mainstream. Having said that, I was also I had to be the protagonist star of this film, because that was the only way we could bring the story to the mainstream and make sure that we don't get wiped out financially trying to do something great. So it was not that I was being a warrior and I said even if I die I'll make this film. The idea was to survive, prevail, and to make more such films, and to make it possible for young creators to believe that if you want to tell a story, you can be honest to it and you can still continue and prevail and make more films and tell more stories. So that's why I said it's about hope. And the last act of Chitta, for those who've seen it and even for those who've not, the last act of Chitta stays with the child. It does not stay with the revenge or justice or vendetta or socio-cultural politics of masculine avenging. If I had gone in that direction, you must believe me, we would have made maybe 10 to 15 times the profit which we made with the ending that we chose. So we did explore those endings. But my writer, my director and I, we were very clear that even if it makes 10,000 people clap, that is not the direction to take this film, because there is no least common denominator applause in hope and in fighting and in prevailing. When you get applause, you have to question it. So when we are getting applause here for what I just said, that is in the context of what I'm talking about, that the applause has come. And my director was very clear, Arun Kumar, I doff my hat to him, that he wanted to leave the audience in silence. Because he said, we don't have silence anymore in the cinema. And I grew up in the cinema. And we did watch marquee films, we did watch the big star vehicles, we did clap and whistle when we saw our matinee idols on screen, don't get me wrong. But we also supported the films that told us stories that we have not had the agency to live in our lives or hear about in our daily life. We had only read about those stories when we were growing up. And it's a sad truth I'm telling you at the Literary Festival in Hyderabad, that we are at the bottom of the calculation pyramid of how many people read books out of 5 lakh people. We are at the bottom of that calculation. When I started working in films 25 years ago, they said 1 out of 60,000 people reads books. Back then in the day, the whole population, we're a country of 140 crore people. That's why the math seems puzzling. It's not 1 out of 1 lakh people here. This is a literary festival. I'm not sure the number is going to be extraordinary here either. I'm sorry to tell you. Today that number is at an all-time low. And that also has to do with our inability as a generation to focus on anything beyond 3 minutes. And we are having to make everything catchy. And we are having to shout everything. So at a time like that, for Arun Kumar to make a film that ends in silence was what Chitta stood for. And I can promise you one more thing, that we wrote a thesis on what we are going to make when we started this film. And the film had 2 very important points from my side, which was, in the first 10 minutes, you must forget you're watching a film or that you are subscribing to fiction. After the first half hour, you must believe it's happening to you. So the first part is involvement and suspension of disbelief, and the second part is empathy, because you're putting yourself in the shoes of the character. So that's where we started this journey, and that's what ended up with Siddharth. And I can tell you that I have recorded tapes of my director and I talking about this film from 2022. And when I play back those tapes today, exactly what we said we were going to do, we did. So in terms of process, we didn't mess around, because you must understand, we live in a very, very constantly assaulting, well, assault is unfortunately no pun intended, but every Friday a new trend.